This our monthly meeting of Devonport City Council. It's Monday the 26th of July and 5:30. Council acknowledge and pay respects to the Tasmanian Aboriginal community as the traditional and original owners and continuing custodians of this land. All persons in attendance are advised that it is council policy to record council meetings in accordance with council's digital recording policy. The digital recording of this meeting will be made available to the public on council's website for a minimum of period of 6 months, and a reminder that we are streaming live on YouTube. Item 1 is apologies, and we have a full complement of councillors present, so there are no apologies. Item 2 is declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest in any item on this agenda? No. I'll declare an interest in item 4.4, which is the planning matter. Item 3.1 is confirmation of minutes of the last meeting. Do I have a mover, please? So moved. Councillor Milburn. Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Thank you. Councillor Hollister. Any comments? Councillor Milburn?
Nothing further, ma'am.
Thank you. Councillor Hollister?
Nothing further.
Any comments, questions? Councillor Milburn to close.
Consider it closed.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? The motion is carried unanimously. Item 3.2 is public question time, and item 3.2.1 is responses to questions raised at prior meetings. Do I have a mover of that recommendation, please?
So moved.
Councillor Perry, thank you.
Seconded.
Councillor Murphy. Councillor Perry.
Merely procedural, Mayor, nothing to add.
Thank you. Councillor Murphy.
Nothing further.
Any other comments, questions? Councillor Perry to close.
Consider it closed.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Item 3.2.2 are questions on notice from the public, and they are listed and shown there. Do I have a mover of the recommendation, please?
You do, Mayor.
Councillor Laycock, thank you. Do I have a seconder?
Seconded.
Councillor Hollister, thank you. Councillor Laycock, any comment?
Nothing to add.
Councillor Hollister?
Nothing further. Good.
Any other comments or questions? Councillor Laycock to close.
Consider it closed.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? The motion's carried unanimously. Item 3.2.3 is questions without notice from the public, which is the opportunity for members of the gallery to ask questions. A reminder that there is a maximum of 3 questions per person permitted, with 5-minute maximum. I would ask you to step towards the lectern, giving your name and address and asking your questions, please.
Right. Trevor Smith, 7 Glen Court, Devonport. Dear Chairperson, the dead small tree in the large tub at the front of my state bank hasn't been replaced for at least 2 to 3 months. Is this situation going to be fixed soon? You have said in previous correspondence that you have had spares available. Is this still true? Right, next one. Do you still have the lease to look after the Woolworths and Coles car parks? And if so, are you going to redo the line markings and traffic direction arrows at both car parks, as the lines markings are becoming faded? Next one. The new footpath construction you are presently undertaking between 196A Best Street and 188 Best Street, what is the total cost for this section of footpath renewal? How does the walkability and medium walkability rule apply for this section of footpath renewal? Could I have a written replies to all my questions asked, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Are there any other questions?
Thank you, Mayor. My name's Douglas Jennings, 23 Watkinson Street, Devonport. Tip fees. I communicated with you councillors on the 4th of July about tip fees. So far, there has been no response to my email. Item 3.4.2 in tonight's agenda does refer to a free domestic use day. However, there is no mention in the agenda of a workshop on the subject. I will read some of what I wrote to you councillors. The increase by 25% from $8 to $10 for a car boot or station wagon load is not as described in the Advocate on Friday as a modest increase. This increase is savage and ought not to have been more than 2.5%.
Mr. Janney, I would remind you this is questions.
Yeah, this is a preamble,
Thank
right?
you.
Because obviously you ignored my email, so I'm reading it to you.
Thank you, Mr. Janney.
The increase is savage and ought not to have been more than 2.5%. However, that is difficult, and 50 cents, 6%, would have been handleable and acceptable. I note that the article states that the large loads are increased only by 11.1%. The small load cost is being clobbered. Fee adjustment should be annually or biannually at the most, and not wait longer than such as 4 years mentioned in the Advocate article. The 4 years, the council cost index, if you know what that is, has been 8.93%, so 25% out of this world. You councillors need to review this matter on transfer station costs and change to a much lesser amount and in line with the CCI. The impact on the budget surplus would not be great. The question is, when is the council going to consider reducing the tip fees in line with the council cost index?
Thank you, Mr. Janney. There has been, as you have, I guess, assumed from your comment, that hasn't been reconsidered, but I will answer in writing. Thank you.
And all right, the second question, if it's not going to be considered, if the answer to question 1 is no consideration, then I request that the council table the numbers argument it used for the tip fees increase.
Thank you, Mr. Janney. Yes, I'm sure you're aware we did consider every item of our council budget very carefully. However, I will respond to you in writing as I've indicated.
I don't think you understand the numbers. Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
My name is Christopher Mills, 52 Caroline Street. I'll try to be as brief as possible. Ladies, gentlemen, councillors, I really must thank the Mayor for encouraging me at the last meeting. Quote, "We are always prepared to listen to you." I have no doubt that the Mayor was speaking on behalf of you all. Thank you. My question 1 is, my question on notice, 26th of July, focused on the fact, supported by photographic evidence, that council vehicles and employees intruded onto private property. The executive coordinator and the general manager combined to offer the explanation, quote, "Normal process was followed in regard to access across the neighbouring property." The question is, what exactly is the normal process?
Mr. Mills, I know that question has been answered in writing and we have just endorsed that response. However, if you require more detail, I will ask the General Manager to respond to that question in writing. Thank you.
Thank you. Question 2. I have asked several times about the understanding between the Mayor and the General Manager, not to answer my questions. Responses to this have so far been, quote, "In accordance with council policy and legislative requirements." Another response was, "A whole raft of legislation that council is required to address." And yet another response was, "There are numerous other acts and legislative requirements which apply to council." The question is, Has an understanding between the Mayor and the General Manager not to answer my questions has not been refuted in these responses.
Mr Mills, I distinctly remember telling you at the last meeting that that is certainly not the case, and we have certainly answered many questions from you over the last few months, and I certainly refute that we have any plan to not respond to your questions other than those that continually ask the same question constantly. And I do take that that we have answered pretty much all of your questions several times.
With the greatest of respect, Your Mayorship, these responses that I've given, 3 of them, are not answers to my questions. If I may just finish off, what specific parts, that is the question, what specific parts of the whole raft of legislation validate their refusal to answer my questions?
Again, Mr Mills, I dispute that we have refused to answer your questions. We may not have given you the answer that you want, but we have certainly answered you.
Thank you so much.
Did you have another
I
question?
do have one more question. It is the year of the financial year 2021. I've always held Councillor Laycock in high regard. I was impressed when she proposed a notice of motion, planting of trees around our city. Council meeting 27th of July 2020. This was passed unanimously by the elected members and was supported by, quote, council officers. The question is, how many attractive deciduous trees have been planted around the city since Councillor Laycock's motion was adopted?
I'll take that on notice, Mr Mills. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr Russell.
Thank you. Rodney Russell, 225 Stewart Street, Devonport. Good to see that you have removed the 2 planning notices from the Aurora installation at the multi-storey car park. Question, who removed them?
Council staff.
Could you please have the same people return and pick up the smaller residue lying on the ground beneath them?
Is that the question?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Question 2. No, not quite. Anyway. As a landlord, Devonport City Council has now installed several rent-paying food businesses in the Paranacle Centre and Providore Place. Question. Did you factor in the detrimental effect this may have on the rate-paying businesses in the CBD?
I'm not sure the differentiation is.
I beg your
I'm
pardon?
not sure what you mean by the differentiation between.
Would you like me to repeat the
Say
question?
the question again, please.
All of it?
The last bit, rate paying, I don't
Okay.
quite understand the.
The question is, did you factor in the detrimental effect this may have on the rate-paying food businesses in the CBD, as the ones you have in the Paranacle Centre are rent-paying?
And I'm not sure that all of those in the CBD are rate payers.
Not all.
Many of those are probably, but leases are factor in the cost of rates to the owner of the property, whether it's the person who runs the business or it's a landlord. And they would all be paying part of their leases, would be a rent contribution,
Thank you.
I would assume.
Okay.
Thank you.
I see you have a petition for a footpath in Good Rising Avenue in tonight's agenda. Also, a footpath for Surrey Street must be well down your priority list. Question. Why then are you replacing existing footpaths as you have done in Edward Street and you are now doing in Forbes Street when others have no footpath at all?
Again, I'll ask the General Manager to respond related to our hierarchy.
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor. There's actually a question on notice in regard to the Forbes Street footpath, and there's quite a bit of detail in the agenda. That's been funded by some vulnerable road users grant funding that we've received. So it's fully external funding. And the reason those areas obtained that funding is because of the high priority traffic areas, pedestrian areas.
And the Edward Street? I'm only using those two as an example.
Yeah, I'll take the Edward Street part on notice now. Just not familiar with the footpath works that are there, whether it's
On the western side that you renewed 12 months ago?
Some time ago.
I'll take it on notice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
Malcolm Garden, 4 Beaumont Drive. On the 7th of August 2020, the Code of Conduct panel upheld 4 elements of a complaint against Mayor Annette Rockcliffe by finding she prematurely closed the 2019 AGM to avoid perceived personal embarrassment. And in addition to her offering to undertake additional training, the panel issued a caution and directed an apology be given. Accordingly, will you, Councillor Rockcliffe, confirm that the training you offered to undertake to improve your performance in managing meetings, such as the AGM, was completed? And if so, the name of the person that delivered the training, who paid for it, and did it include a conflicts of interest component?
I'll take that on notice, Mr. Garden.
You don't know if you had a training?
I'll take it on notice so you have the answer in writing, Mr. Garden. Thank you.
I thought that would have been it, sorry.
I didn't say it was a difficult question. I said I would respond in writing.
Question 2. With reference to items 5.2 and 5.3 listed for closed session on page 139 of the agenda, will Council confirm, without needing to provide specific details, that none of the outstanding debtors relates to present or past tenants of Providore Place?
As you've obviously already understood, Mr. Garden, it's a closed session, so I will not make any comment. Thank you.
I'll take it that that's...
I'll take it that I will not accept that question. Thank you.
I'm not asked anything special, but
Pardon?
I'll take that.
Excuse me, I beg your pardon.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you.
I'll take that it does apply to...
No, Mr. Garden, you will take that it is part of our closed session of council, and as our part of our policy clearly states, we will not comment on that, particularly in the public question. I will not comment, Mr. Garden. Move on.
Okay, thank you.
This isn't for debate.
Okay, on page 136 of tonight's agenda, the report to council authored by the General Manager relating to a Code of Conduct determination report involving Councillors Rockcliffe, Laycock and Perry, it states under the heading discussion that the complaint has been upheld and the councils are required to undergo training in relation to conflicts of interest. However, in line with council's openness, transparency and accountability claims, will the General Manager explain to the meeting why an incomplete report is provided with the obvious omission that Councillor Rockcliffe was also reprimanded and Councillors Laycock and Perry received a caution in addition to all having to undergo training in relation to conflicts of interest? Why is there a material omission from the General Manager report?
Attachment.
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor. The full determination report is provided as an attachment to the agenda.
Well, you didn't need to put anything in the report. Just
Thank you, Mr.
Mr.
Garden. It's not a debate. Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions? Not comments, questions.
Bob Vellacott, 11 Copper Place, Devonport. Question, Mayor and Councillors. Given that the original fit-out cost for Charlotte Jack's Tennessee 2, the former tenant in Providore Place, was $221,000 plus undisclosed amounts for tenant-specific base bill requirements, and that the tenancy is now known as Frankie Jo's Cocktail and Wine Bar with Pisarina, will you inform that the amount in dollar terms, if any, has council expended in stripping out fixtures, fittings, etc., and any other work required necessary for the new tenant? Has there been any cost to ratepayers for that fitting out, the new tenant?
Mr. General Manager.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. No, the fit out for the current tenancy has been undertaken by the tenant at no cost to council.
No costs whatsoever.
The question's been asked and answered, Mr. Bellicott. Thank you.
Transparency and accountability, Mayor. Council is to be thanked and commended for your ongoing transparency and accountability, in particular for revealing what ratepayers contribute to your stipends, that is annual allowance, and towards your allocated personal expenditure. In response to questions previously asked about the total legal costs pertaining to sort out the unfortunate mismanagement or maladministration of the first and second
Mr.
head lease
Bellicott, be
agreements,
very careful of your language. Thank you.
head lease agreements at Providore Place, you informed that you had been well informed of all costs. However, the General Manager, when asked what the total cost in dollar terms were for the legal costs to sort out the problems, informed me, in words to the effect that the computer said no, because its program could not provide that sort of specific information. Given the above, and to prove that you are serious about openness and transparency and accountability, I ask if you can now provide the total legal costs, and if not, will you request the General Manager to arrange for the Council's computer technology experts to upgrade his computer program so it can provide the information that not only the white noises are entitled to know, but also all ratepayers are entitled to know. Thank you.
I'll take that on notice. Thank you, Mr. Bellicott. Did you have a third question?
I have a further one. Mayor, this question pertains to the Code of Conduct determination and in particular to penalties and recommendations imposed on those who have found to be breached of the Code of Conduct. Does Council have a policy that stipulates councillors who have been found to have breached the Code of Conduct are required to personally pay all costs associated with the investigation process, plus any other costs such as training when directed, and if Council does not have a policy, will you recommend that they do so?
We don't currently have a policy. It's maybe something that's up for discussion. I don't think any council does at this point.
So the Council picks up the full amount. Thank you.
Were there any other questions? Mr. Hess.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Firstly, I'd like to thank you for receiving our petition for the Woodrise Avenue in Sprayton. Whilst I'm disappointed on the recommendations being made to the Council, as per the agenda item 5, I've taken the liberty of getting some more information, which I think may be quite appropriate for this request.
Mr. Hess, I would remind you that this is questions on notice.
I'm getting a question.
Thank you.
And the question is, was it taken into consideration that in excess of 100 houses have been developed in the last 4 years by Parker and Crosby Developments, which has created $2,000 average per house rental over and above what the council were getting in terms of revenue for the council? And also, was the fact of children's safety, being there's no bus stops at all in Woodrise Avenue, also taken into consideration when they made that recommendation? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hess.
Yes, through you, Mayor. Yeah, the item's on the agenda tonight, and I'm sure councillors will be mindful of those two facts.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? No? Moving on. Item 3.4 is notices of motion, and item 3.4.1 is banning of balloon releases, a motion from Councillor Jarman. moving the motion?
Yes, please.
Do I have a seconder?
Second.
Councillor Alexia, thank you. Councillor Jarman.
I think it's pretty obvious that I'd just like this to go to a workshop. There's been a bit of discussion in the paper. I appreciate Roger Yench's returned some information via the advocate as well about what the state government have done and where they're at. But I'd like to just look at this further. It's certainly not something I'm just saying that should be done on a local level. It's just that it's certainly on a local level. I'd like to bring it up. And so I just hope that my colleagues are happy for this to go to a workshop so we can have a look at it. It's now banned, it's now illegal in Victoria, so I'd love to see Tassie follow suit, if not be the leaders for something like this. And I certainly am totally in respect of industries that are involved with any kind of balloon making events, whatever. I have run the 2 funeral homes that are locally here just to make sure that they weren't being disrespected at all. They don't offer that option anymore, which is great. So I suppose I'm just trying to formalise it. So looking forward to hearing from my colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Alexia.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, Councillor Jarman, I think it's probably something we should take to the workshop and definitely have a good conversation about balloons being released out into the environment. It's something we have to be very mindful of and careful of. Look forward to having a workshop on it.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Councillor Perry.
Thanks, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Jarman, for raising the issue. You mentioned the Environment Minister Roger Yench had commented on it. He actually said the release of balloons in the environment was already in contravention of the Tasmanian Litter Act. Does that make it illegal or does it not? Is that a legal standpoint? So if it's illegal already, I'm not sure what we need to do further, rather than raise the issue when it happens. Or, maybe there's not an education campaign out there that mass release of balloons aren't aware of that contravention of the Tasmanian Litter Act. So if it's already there, I'm not sure where we need to go with this.
May I answer that there?
Yeah.
Yes, you may.
Oh, thank you. Look, I think if it gets to the workshop level, I can be a little bit more frank about it, because we do have some still happening in Tasmania, and it's obviously not been professional companies actually doing it. So I'd like to see it go, where we write to the state government. I'm going to be encouraging other councils to do the same so that we can get it made illegal. So it's proper. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other?
So in fact, it would be an education process for an existing law.
We could debate that at a workshop. Thank you. Are there any other comments, questions? Councillor Murphy.
Thanks, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Jarman, for bringing your motion. I'd just like to know, you referred to the Victorian legislation. Is there any, have we got any indication of how many prosecutions they've had since they've introduced that legislation at all?
May I return as well?
Again, a reminder that this is not
a
but I'll allow you to answer the question, Councillor Jarman.
Yes, certainly. I'm aware that it's only just happened in Victoria, so I'm not aware of whether they've actually prosecuted anybody as of yet. Thank you.
Did you have anything further, Councillor Murphy? Thank you.
Just a question.
Councillor Hollister.
Do they still have such a thing as weather balloons, or are they outdated by computers?
Thank you. Councillor Jarman to close.
Thank you. I appreciate all the questions, and that's exactly what I want to do, so that we can have a broader discussion with some more information being brought forward to a workshop. So I hope that we can get to that point. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll close the debate and put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Are there any against?
No.
I'll ask for a show of hands. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Councillor Alexia, Councillor Hollister, Councillor Ennis, Councillor Jarman, Councillor Rockcliffe. Those against? Councillor Murphy, Councillor Laycock, Councillor Milbourne and Councillor Perry. The motion is carried. Thank you. We're good? Let's just Thank you. Moving on to item 3.4.2 is a further notice of motion from Councillor Jarman regarding transfer station. Councillor Jarman?
So moved.
Do I have a seconder?
Happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Alexio. Councillor Jarman?
Again, to be brought to a workshop so that we can have a discussion. I certainly take note from the speaker earlier, Mr. Jennings. I just looked up your email, it went to spam, I'm sorry, so that's why I haven't seen it. I certainly just think that we need to look at something. Last year I spoke about the job in the dumper situation that we had where people weren't going to the transfer stations and they were just dumping in the bush. There is a lot of trouble going on with this, and I certainly think the more we put fees up, which I understand, there's always a cost involved. Everything costs, whether we have free events or what, everything costs. But it would be nice for us to have a good open discussion at a workshop level whether we can look at the roadside collection, the hard waste collection, or whether we offer a free day, whether it's suburb by suburb, so that it's not everybody inundated on one day. Again, just at a workshop level so we can see whether there's something that could be done for everybody out there who's hurting. And we know everything goes up all the time, and that's what happens. So I hope that I can get my colleagues to have a good discussion about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Alexio.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thanks, Councillor Jarman. I think it is an issue we see a lot in the city. I've had quite a fair few comments coming into my business with ratepayers asking me about tip rates. It's something we need to work on in the workshop, definitely.
Thank you. Are there any other comments, Councillor Murphy?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was fortunate enough to be travelling the state over the weekend with some family members from interstate and happened to visit Maricopa Caves. And the tour guide there at the caves was a very interesting sort of a chap. And he was talking about caves and the impact of waste and landfill on the environment, etc., and how it impacts the subsoil. Interestingly enough, what he did was he sort of conveyed a message to the group of visitors to the cave, and when he first moved to the current location, he lives in Golden Valley, how he went from having 2 bins of waste per fortnight to only having a small garbage bin a month, and the emphasis was on recycling and really focusing on how you can recycle almost everything or anything. And so I support what Councillor Jarman's motion is and quite welcome it to go to workshops. I think it'll be a very interesting conversation because I think providing something of this nature would have significant impacts on people recycling, and their focus should be on recycling, not just having the opportunity to take things to the tip for free.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Councillor Jarman to close.
Consider it closed.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? The motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 4 is Planning Authority matters, and I now announce that Council intends to act as a planning authority under the Land Use Plannings and Approvals Act of 1993 for the consideration of agenda items 4.1 to 4.4. Council is required by Regulation 8.3 of the Local Government Meeting Procedures Regulations 2015 to deal with items as a planning authority under the LUPA 1993 in a sequential manner. And the following items are to be dealt with at this meeting by Council in its capacity as a planning authority. And I will point out that item 4.3 has been withdrawn, deferred at this stage at a request from the proponent. Item 4.1 is PA 2021.0081 and it's 40 to 48 Best Street advertising signage. Do I have a mover, please?
So moved.
Councillor Alexio, thank you. Councillor Murphy, Councillor Alexio.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I think this is a great idea for the city. Obviously having those signs out and about, you see them in a lot of other places. And I think it's going to be really beneficial it's going to brighten up the city as well, visually. All our tourists that are visiting our city, because I think these signs are going to be great for the city. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Murphy.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I think it's a common sense approach. The officer's comments and the amount of work that's gone into this, they've obviously got a permit pathway, so I think it does provide an opportunity for retailers the like to potentially utilise these sites and move on.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Councillor Perry?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I'll be supporting the recommendation. I think it'll bring some colour to what is essentially a concrete building. And I know there's one representation against it. And Times Square's reasonably colourful, and I think that adds plenty to New York, and this could be our Times Square. Well, it could be the start. Could be the start. Thank you.
Always the optimist, councillor Perry. Are there any other comments? Councillor Alexio to close.
Consider it closed, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? Motion is carried unanimously. Moving on to item 4.2 is PA 2021.0089, 6 Matthews Way. Do I have a mover of the recommendation, please?
So moved.
Councillor Milburn.
Seconded.
Thank you. Councillor Murphy. Councillor Milburn.
I can see that the report's been written with approval with conditions recommended, so as long as those conditions are met, there should be no too many issues.
Thank you. Councillor Murphy.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, it's relevant to other like businesses in that particular precinct, so again, the recommendation's there, so.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Councillor Perry?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I agree with the previous two speakers, and this will, in fact, improve the amenity of that area. It's good in concept and makes a lot of sense in a light industrial zone. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Councillor Milburn to close.
Consider it closed.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? Motion's carried unanimously. As I mentioned, item 4.3 has been deferred. Item 4.4, I will ask Councillor Jarman to take the chair.
I'll use your laptop. Thank you. So item 4.4, which is 200 Stony Rise Road, removal of items. Can I have a mover, please?
So moved.
Councillor Hollister, thank you. And a seconder?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Councillor Perry, thank you. Councillor Hollister, any comments?
Just that this is a removal of items from the church, which I presume has been closed. Out the door. Further, join the report.
Thank you. Councillor Perry.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Yeah, I've come across planning application that requires adjudication on removing stuff from inside of a building. I know there's heritage listed or there's heritage considerations, but I'm struggling to come to terms with what we're actually looking at, but I'm going to support the recommendation anyway. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comment? I'll ask Councillor Hollister to close.
Consider it closed.
Thank you. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? So carried. Thank you. And I'll ask the Mayor to come back and chair the meeting from now. Thank you. Thank you.
Moving on to item 5.1, which is the tabling of the petition. Do I have a mover of the motion, please?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to move, but with an amendment to dot point 3. in the recommendation, if I could, thanks. I'll read that out.
If you would.
At the very start, before the word commit, the C in commit can become lowercase. Okay, so prior to preparation of the 2022/23 budget, comma. Okay, at the very end, yeah, and the last bit, and analysis, it's already up there on the volume and patterns of recreational walkers along Wood Rising Avenue, which is in addition, that last, after the last column, which is in addition to what was in the recommendation. I would move that that be the recommendation. Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Councillor Perry and Murphy. Councillor Perry.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Firstly, congratulations to the petitioners for being proactive in improving their area. The report's quite detailed, and there are lots of explanations in there on why the recommendation was listed as it was. There's a couple of things in there that, even though I accept most of the explanations, there's a couple of things in there that one thing I struggled with, and that was council has currently identified 90 potential projects with a combined value of $8 million are in the higher walkability areas. I don't dispute that fact, but 90 is a lot, and I'm not sure there would be 90 more high volume walkability areas in the city of Devonport than along there, and certainly the growth along that particular road is going to increase exponentially in coming years. I don't think we can do anything in the current financial year because that budget's been done, and to do so would be to forego other projects that have been waiting in line for some time. So I don't think we can do that to those particular projects. But I do think, given the strength of the petition and the gathering of information, that we should seriously consider it in the 22-23 budget. And further, and analyse the volume and patterns of recreational walkers, because I don't think that was considered in the initial analysis of the entire project. So I think that needs to be considered going forward, and that might project a different outcome to our planning officers or to our officers that have come up with that recommendation. So let's see what everyone else has to say about that. And I'll close and I'll get to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Murphy.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with Councillor Perry. I think this is a common sense approach in the amendment to the recommendation. As a frequent user of that area, I do see firsthand, but I'm also aware of the required need for footpaths throughout other parts of Devonport as well that have been on that list and on that priority list for some period of time. I think it's just really smart for us to consider that in next year's budget and not this.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Councillor Laycock.
Thank you, Mayor. I commend Councillor Perry for putting the amendment forward. I certainly do agree with it. At a recent workshop, I did note the pedestrian traffic, and some people came to me later and said there can't be that many going into the country club. Well, I didn't mean it about the country club people going in. They do that with, they drive in, obviously. There's still a few locals that do that, but there's a lot of recreational activities walking even at night. Now, when you do drive from the club, which I've done on several occasions, having been out there for a meal, it's very distracting when you've got lights, oncoming lights, and you've got pedestrians on the side of the road. I'd just like to mention that. That's why I'm really pleased we've got the opportunity to bring this back and have a good look at it. Mr. Hess did state earlier tonight there's 100 new homes being built there recently, so that is a lot of extra traffic in a very concentrated area. We need to also look forward to when we build the bridge, the footbridge going into the back of Maidstone Park. And we have said, and it is in tonight's council agenda, within our pedestrian strategy of 2016-2021 was adopted to assist with the objectives and goals that's outlined in our strategic plan, which says to make walking in Devonport safe and convenient and to enable and encourage walking as a mode of transport. So I think this is all good. I do congratulate Mr. Hess and his team getting all those people to sign a petition, and I look forward to coming back during budget deliberations this time next year or earlier in the new year. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Jarman.
Thank you. Look, I totally respect each and every signature that's been on this petition. It was well thought out and well put together. Of course, there are other high priorities that we've got for certain footpaths that some people have been screaming out for years. We've got a lot of footpaths to construct, and so I certainly understand why council have put this information in front of us in this way. But I certainly take on board what Councillor Perry has done, and so we'll re-look at it. That's great. I've certainly got concern that the Speaker, Mr. Hess, brought to our notice that there's no bus stops. I'd certainly like to look into that further if we could, General Manager. That certainly concerns me. It sounds a bit strange for an area that's got a lot of children there, so I'd certainly like that to be part of what we do as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Milbourne.
Thank you, Mayor. I actually have a few questions. Firstly, I'd like to thank Mr. Hess for highlighting some of the value points during that question time, but I have some questions, if I may, forward possibly to
just ask them to your General Manager.
Okay, sure. The questions are around the parameters and the methodology of some of the items that are in the report. I'd like to firstly ask about what is the methodology to identify us to get the impact of walkability or the levels of walkability?
Mr. Scurvy.
Through you, Mayor. So walkability is generally built around activity centres, and they are identified in the strategy in terms of existing activity centres, and they're largely around points of retail, school, service hubs. So certainly in this Brayton area, obviously school and recreation zones, we have a retail hub in that area, that would be a large driver. I think that would be, I guess, the country club as a activity centre is something that needs to be potentially considered as opposed to other service centres within that suburb, and what the priority for connection is. And so that was certainly the priority placed on the Pier of Eight Creek in terms of connecting the suburb to an off-road connection away from Wood Rising Avenue and Mersey Main Road to Maidstone Park and the school precinct in particular.
Yeah, thanks for highlighting that, because that is where I was going. So since 2016, we've not only had the country club that's been upgraded, we've also had the gymnastics centre, the netball is looking to be upgraded, etc. IGA is there, plus all the other services that are around that area. So I just have to refute the low to very low walkability in the comments. To me,
that's opinion. Councillor Milbourne, you're certainly entitled to that opinion. Carry on.
So within the report, I'm assuming that data was based on 2016 walkability status in Sprayton?
So through you, Mayor, I guess the comments around walkability are really talking to the premise of the petition, which was around connecting to the country club. I think the country club as a walkability destination is still potentially a low driver comparative to other locations in the suburb, and that's partly because obviously we're connecting to public services and retail outlets as a driver, not necessarily a single facility.
Well, in that then, if I may, I would have to say that it would have to be classed as a little bit higher walkability, because Wood Rising Avenue does not just connect to the country club, we also connect to the other services around. And since 2016, there has been such a high build there. I went for a drive this afternoon and counted 80, but I wouldn't go on my figures. I think Mr. Hess has probably been more correct with 100. in that area. So I do think that we need to look at the methodology to which these reports and the strategies are in place. I'm generally very much a supporter of our reports, but I think this one highlights some rather large issues with the methodology that we have for walkability and the way that we are driving our upgrades of our pathways within the city. And perhaps that this particular issue, I note that we will get onto it in our next budget, but this particular issue perhaps has highlighted some inadequacies with the way that that strategy is organised.
Thank you, Councillor Morgan. I guess my only comment to that is that our strategies are reviewed regularly and looked at, and so there's opportunity for us to continue to I guess, improve in all of those areas, and we continue to do that and work hard at it. Councillor Ennis.
Thank you. I'm trying to get my head around understanding what an analysis of pedestrian recreational walkers would be like if there's no footpath. It's a sort of like a chicken or an egg affair. Are people going to walk when there's no footpaths? That may well be sort of a bit of a challenge. So I'm interested to see how that might come about so that we could sort of get a fair understanding of how many people use that area for walking.
Take this comment. Thank you, Councillor Ennis. Were there any other? Councillor Alexio?
Yes, thanks, Madam Mayor. I think the amendment's correct that Councillor Perry put on there. Yeah, look, I agree with some of the speakers previously, but I just want to point out a couple of things that I noticed in my area, which is in Ambleside, and we do have a cycle lane, we do have a footpath, and it gets used quite heavily. It's only been just linked just not that long ago. But we also see quite a fair few pedestrians using the road. I just wanted to point out to Mr. Hess that, yeah, I know that people do walk on the road, they don't have a footpath, but sometimes we do have a footpath and people seem to walk visually on the road. So I just wanted to point that out. Regarding the bus stop, I know in my area as well, they all station a bus stop. They've got one outside my house at the moment, so I suppose the bus depot will organise where the buses will be dropping off and stopping there and pull up on the side there. Nothing else. That's what I think's going to be.
Thank you, Councillor Alexio. Are there any other comments? Councillor Hollister, yes.
How long ago did we actually review these walkability settings?
The strategy is current.
It's a lot of years since I had it.
I'll take that on notice. The strategy is still current, but the data around it. I think everybody else has spoken now. Councillor Perry, close.
Thanks, thanks, Madam Mayor, and thanks to everyone for their comments. I just wanted to focus again on the last bit of that, the change, or the additional narrative to the recommendation. That is an analysis on the volume and patterns of recreational walkers along Wood Rising Avenue. Now, I think the report's given rise to pedestrian activity heading into the shopping centre or to the country club, and that's fine, that's what the report's designed to do, but I don't think enough emphasis has been placed on those recreational walkers that do go up and down Wood Rising Avenue. In answer to Councillor Ennis's question, at the moment, yeah, they do, they're walking on the road. Quite a wide road, admittedly, but they're walking on the road. And I had coursed out at Wood Rising a couple of weeks ago at around 10 a.m. and on another matter, and the guy I was talking to, I suspect he was one of the petitioners. While I was talking to him for about 10 minutes on his front lawn, one person after another and children were just walking up and down the road, and then I could just feel as each one went past, the head was dropping and said, well, there's a lot more activity on here that maybe has not been captured by council's reports into this report, or council's analysis into the report. So that is why I just want to reiterate the last point of the amendment, the second amendment in point 3, and I think An analysis over a 7-day period would reveal there is very heavy walkability along that road that's not necessarily going to a designated area out into a shopping area, but they just walk because they're recreational walkers. So I think we need to consider that. And with that, I'll close. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. Oh, thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? No. I will ask for a show of hands. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Councillor Alexio, Councillor Hollister, Councillor Laycock, Councillor Murphy, Councillor Ennis, Councillor Jarman, Councillor Perry and Councillor Rockcliffe. Those against? Councillor Milborn. The motion is carried. Thank you. Item 5.2 is the tender report for contract CTO 298 for Kelsey Road, a reconstruction. Do I have a mover, please?
You do, Ed.
Councillor Laycock, and a seconder.
Seconded.
Councillor Murphy, thank you. Councillor Laycock?
It's merely procedural, so there's nothing to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Murphy?
Very much needed, so it's, we'd like to draw on this one.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Councillor Laycock to close.
Consider it closed.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
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 Are there any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Item 5.3 is tender report for contract CTO 301.01 for hot mix asphalt. Can I have a mover, please?
So moved.
Councillor Hollister, thank you.
I'll second.
Councillor Milborn, thank you. Councillor Hollister.
It's all in the report. It's just a yearly placement of hot mix asphalt. So nothing further, right?
Thank you. Councillor Milborn.
That's all there, thank you, nothing.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions? Councillor Hollister to close.
Consider it closed.
Oh, beg your pardon.
Thank you,
Take
Mayor.
that, hold that thought. Councillor Murphy.
It's just worth noting that it does leave the tender value comes in and leaves a considerable amount of money back to the budget, which is going to be handy for potentially potholes that emerge throughout the city.
That was worth waiting for, Councillor Murphy. Thank you. Councillor Hollister to close.
Consider it closed.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Item 5.4 is the tender report for contract CTO 3. Thank you, Councillor Perry. Do I have a seconder?
Happy to see.
Councillor Laycock, thank you. Councillor Perry.
Best be careful what I say. Just really an extension of the previous motion, just a contract that needs to be awarded on an annual basis, and it's all in the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Laycock.
Nothing to add, Mayor.
Are there any other comments? Councillor Perry to close.
Consider it closed.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
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 Are there any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Item 5.5 is the risk management framework update. Do I have a mover, please?
So moved.
Councillor Hollister, thank you. And a seconder.
I'll second.
Councillor Milborn, thank you. Councillor Hollister.
It's all in the report. It's the usual risk management framework that we look at, so nothing further to add.
Thank you. Councillor Milborn.
I concur, nothing further.
Any other comments, questions? Councillor Jarman.
Yes, I just have one, and it's just more for clarification more than anything. Through you, Madam Chair, through to somebody.
General Manager in the first instance, thank you.
Yes, page 175 has got the stakeholders and what their actions are required through this. But page 184, it refers to ordinance, so we need to change that, I'm sure, assistant councillors. But on the stakeholder list on page 175, there's nothing about councillors. So are we the council component? Because the rest is general manager, and then it goes into management and talks about staff. But we're not on there. But we might not need to be mentioned there necessarily, I didn't know. But then also we've called Alderman on page 184. That's all.
Yeah, I'll take that.
Did you? Thank you, Ms Lunson.
Through you, Mayor, to Councillor Jarman. That's my interpretation of it, is that the council is referring to the councillors yourselves.
Oh, okay. All right. No worries. And yeah, if we could get it changed so it doesn't say Alderman anymore. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Councillor Hollister to close.
Close.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Item 6.1 is workshops and briefing sessions since the last council meeting. Do I move it, please?
So move. Second.
Councillor Perry, Councillor Ennis, Councillor Perry.
Just an accurate reflection of the workshop held on 12 July. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ennis.
Nothing further.
Are there any comments, questions? Councillor Perry to close.
Consider it closed.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Item 6.2 is the Mayor's monthly report. Can I move it, please?
So moved.
Councillor Alexio, do I have a seconder?
Happy to second, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Laycock. Councillor Alexio.
Nothing further, Madam Mayor, it's all there.
Thank you, Councillor Laycock.
Nothing to add, thank you.
Any comments, questions? Councillor Alexio to close.
Consider it closed.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Item 6.3 is the General Manager's report. Could I have a mover, please?
So moved.
Councillor Murphy.
Second.
Councillor Perry. Councillor Murphy.
Thank you, Mayor. Looks like the General Manager's been busy. It's all there in his report. Interesting to use the General Manager in a capacity at all to provide an update or any information that members may be interested in relation to the Devonport Showground site.
Mr. Atkins.
Through you, Mayor. I guess the only comment out of that meeting is that it's likely that we'll receive an application very shortly for that project.
Thank you, Councillor Perry.
Nothing to add, Mayor.
Are there any comments or questions? Councillor Murphy to close.
Consider it closed.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
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 Are there any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Item 6.3 is Community Services Report for May and June. Mover, please. Isn't it what I
I'm
said?
happy to move 6.4.
Oh, sorry.
Madam Mayor.
6.4. Thank you, Councillor Laycock.
Thank you.
I need a seconder.
I'll second that.
Councillor Alexia. Sorry. I'm back on track now. Councillor Laycock.
Moving a bit too quickly, isn't it? A very comprehensive report from Mrs Hampton, well done. Lots of things getting organised and also lots of things being changed, which will be the next report. However, even I got to go to only one jazz function over the weekend. It was very good, but I do know your staff have been working absolutely flat out with rearrangements because of the COVID situation. But everything that's in that report shows you just how busy that you and your team are. So well done. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Laycock. Councillor Alexio.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, thanks, Councillor. I just wanted to say that with the COVID outbreak that we've had, it must be very difficult for Karen and her team to organise all these events. And I guess we have to look at the bigger picture as well. It's probably going to be here for a little bit longer, and we have to anticipate these sort of things happening on a regular basis. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Councillor Ennis.
Yes, I had the privilege of attending the opening of the East Edinburgh Football Club female change rooms, and I'd just like to commend Councillor Perry for doing a great job of emceeing the opening.
Thank you, Councillor Ennis. Are there any other comments or questions? Councillor Hollister.
Just with the jazz element to the union show. Yeah, noon. And that's absolutely fantastic. And if we can get her back in the future, it would be fantastic.
Thank you, Councillor Hollister. Are there any other comments, questions? Councillor Laycock to close.
Consider it closed.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Item 6.5 is the Convention and Arts Report for May and June. Do I have a mover, please?
So moved.
Councillor Alexio, thank you.
I'll second that.
And Councillor Perry. Councillor Alexio.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Yes, it's a difficult time even for the arts and arts centre there as well. There's still a lot of activity happening there, and I can see there's quite a fair few meetings Mr. Dobson's attended, so it's good to see that. He's been meeting quite regularly with grants aunts as well. That's good to see. Nothing further. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Perry.
Nothing really, Madam Mayor, but just like to reiterate Councillor Alexio's comments and similarly with the Community Services report. We're still dealing with the lurgy of COVID, and our team's doing a great job dealing with the cancellations and I guess the changes we need to make as the COVID landscape changes on the mainland. So well done to everyone involved.
Thank you. Any other comments, Councillor Murphy?
That's just interesting note in the report. It's over a 61-day period that Town Hall was actually let out for 44 days. That's hired out. That's a pretty good effort, realistically, and obviously it shows that there's demand there for that particular space. So, well done.
Councillor Ennis.
Okay, I just hope that many people attended the Uncommon Ground exhibition in the little gallery. It was fantastic and a lot of local content, and it was really interesting. So if you missed it, keep an eye out for the next one.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Councillor Alexio to close.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you to the speakers. Nothing further. Thank you.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Item 6.6 is General Management, People and Finance and Corporate Services Report for May and June. Do I have a mover, please?
So moved.
Councillor Milborn, thank you. Seconder? Councillor Hollister, thank you. Councillor Milborn.
Very comprehensive report. I believe it's all there. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hollister.
It's interesting to see all the different parts that make up this report. It's fairly wide-reaching. Nothing further to add.
Yes, thank you. Are there any other comments?
Just a quick one, thanks, Mayor. It's good to see all the media that was put out. It was good, positive media on the good work that council staff and council are doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Councillor Murphy?
Thanks, Mayor. I'm not too sure whether it's relevant or not, but in the report, I did apply for a leave of absence, but subsequently didn't have a leave of absence as I took the Premier's advice and didn't go into state, thankfully. And if it's possible to have the report reflect that.
It is somewhere.
So it is noted.
It is noted. At some point. I did read it somewhere.
No, it's noted in closed session.
On page 124.
But duly noted. Thank you, Councillor Murphy. Are there any other comments, questions? Councillor Milborn to close.
Consider it closed.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Item 6.7 is the elected members' expense report to the 30th of June. Do I have a mover, please?
So moved.
Councillor Milborn, Councillor Perry. Councillor Milborn.
That's all there. Nothing further.
Councillor Perry.
The information's there, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Councillor Milborn to close.
Consider it closed.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? Motion's carried unanimously. Item 6.8 is the Code of Conduct Determination Report. Do I have a mover, please?
So moved.
Councillor Murphy. Do I have a seconder?
Seconder.
Councillor Alexio, thank you. Councillor Murphy.
Thank you, Mayor. discussion, obviously, the report is noted for to be accepted. There's not much really more to add, to be quite honest. It's done and dusted, been through a process. That's pretty much it.
Thank you. Councillor Alexia.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Look, from what we read in the media, I mean, some of the stories that we've read in there, like, it is what it is. I don't believe it is that. I think the process is there and we have to go abide by that process and do what we're told. To the councillors that were flying there, I hope that they go through the process there of going through the code of conduct preparation that they have to go through. I hope that the cost isn't too expensive for council. And I hope we learn from this. Thank you.
Councillor Hollister.
Thank you. I think the process is flawed. I think it's not much different to a kangaroo report. And I hope that when the local government acts change, this gets changed and fixed up. And people don't realise that if any of the councillors decided to take this to the Supreme Court, which they're entitled to, the people that ask all these questions and put all these processes in place will only costing the ratepayers further money for legal costs. That would be the ratepayers indirectly paid.
Thank you, Councillor Hollister. Any other comments? Councillor Murphy to close.
Thank you, Mayor. I acknowledge the points of view of the two previous speakers. I think they both have merit. Yes, there is. We are bound by a code of conduct. There's no doubt about that. I also agree with Councillor Hollister in relation to some of the processes and how they're undertaken. But I think that's a conversation for another day and at another level of government. As I said, the process was undertaken, the decision was made, and we have to accept that. And I believe that the people involved will do. Nothing further.
Thank you. I will close the debate. Put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are there any against?
No.
I will ask for a show of hands. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Councillor Alexio, Councillor Laycock, Councillor Murphy, Councillor Ennis, Councillor Jarman, Councillor Milborn, Councillor Perry and Councillor Rockcliffe. Those against? Councillor Hollister. The motion is carried. Thank you. Item 7.1, confirmation of minutes of the Planning Authority Committee meeting of the 12th of July. Can I have a mover, please?
So moved.
Councillor Murphy. A seconder?
Second.
Councillor Alexio, thank you. Councillor Murphy?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Very brief meeting.
Councillor Alexio?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Nothing further to add.
Are there any comments, questions? Councillor Perry?
Brief meeting, beautifully led. By Councillor Murphy, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? I'm going to have to read to white numbers. Councillor Murphy to close.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, previous speakers. Consider it closed.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? Motion's carried unanimously. I now need a motion to move into closed session, please.
So moved.
Councillor Murphy, Councillor Milborn. Any comment? No, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any against? Motion's carried unanimously, and this part of the meeting has closed at 6:44. Thank you everyone for your attendance.